Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I'm very excited to bring you another top 5 video. This time, we're getting kind of specific. Listen, we're right on the cusp of 50 new Age of Overlord cards getting revealed in the next 3-ish weeks. On top of that, we could easily get the first 1 or 2 archetypes revealed for the next deck build pack. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline, right? But it's been a light news week, and so I wanted to come up with something else to do a video on, another topic. And in thinking about this new support, I get thinking about what archetypes I really want to see there, and I've done those general videos of what archetypes should get support, what do I want to get support. But this video is a little bit specifically different. These are decks that are closer than you probably realize. These are cards that, if they got the right one card, they could be a competitive threat immediately. And this list is definitely going to be, this list could be way bigger than I'm going to make it. I'm just throwing out a top 5. I like doing that because then it leaves you guys room to throw out your suggestions here, what you think falls into this category, one card away, and what kind of card you'd like to see for them. And also, we're not talking about tier 1 either. Like, it doesn't, I don't want to play a tier 1 deck, to be honest. I'd rather play a rogue deck that's cool and can catch people off guard and has, cool matchups, but like can still compete. That's what I enjoy doing, and I know a lot of you do as well. So that's the basis of this video. Without further ado, let's get into it. Like I said a little bit earlier, let me know your thoughts down below. What archetypes do you think fall into this that I didn't mention here? But let's get into it. Starting off, number 1. Just kidding. This is, so just as a couple of examples of like cards we could see that like just kind of explain, like, I'm not trying to say they need the most insane card of all time, but even if they just get close or even match the power level of archetypal supports they've already made, then some of these archetypes could definitely be there. I mean, Double Dragon Lords is a Stratos on summon, and it's a compulsory evacuation device every single turn and has a third bonus effect that buffs all of your archetypal monsters. It's an insane card. So like a lot of archetypes would be insane if they got a card like this. In that same vein, for a more main decky option, Exosister Martha is insane. You could also throw Circular in this category as well, but just some examples to you that might kind of make sense in what you might be looking for depending on the archetype. So let's get into number 1. Number 1 is Ogdoadic. You can call this the Reptile pile if you want. It's a really cool deck, and I know they just got 2 cards of support from Age of Overlord, so I'm not expecting them, to get a ton of support super soon. But I've talked about this for a long time, and reptiles have not come up anywhere. I know insects were kind of relevant not that long ago, before Verte got banned, and then they kind of floundered after Verte was gone. But this deck kind of feels similar to that deck and similar to Dragon Link, but those other 2 strategies don't have themselves a hieratic seal of Heavenly Spheres. They don't have that fallback plan. If this deck goes for a board and it gets stopped a little bit, it probably just crumbles. Same thing with Bee Troopers in a lot of instances, or insects. So the basis is, like, how many duels does Dragon Link win because it gets stopped a bunch, 2 to 3 hand traps, and then they still just put 2 dragons on the field, and boom, hieratic seal carries them to a grindy win. Like, how many percentage of games do they like tack onto their win tally and percentage because that card exists? A ton. It's part of their end board. It's part of their fallback plan that like keeps them alive and gives them a chance in duels that otherwise they definitely would be scooping immediately. And that's what this deck doesn't have. So I'd love to see that. A Link 2 that's just a more reptile tailored version of hieratic seal. I think that'd be perfect. So there you go. There's number 1. Moving on, number 2, Virtual World. This one a lot of people might have realized because, like with reptiles, we haven't seen reptiles do anything for so long. At least Virtual World, like, 3-4 years ago, this was one of the best decks in the game. And so a lot of people probably remember that. But even at that time, people were saying, this deck has huge consistency issues. We had competitive players say, I like this deck. It's definitely the best deck. But every tournament I go to, I just feel like I could definitely just lose 2 rounds automatically by default just because my deck literally can't play because it has consistency problems as an archetype. So it's one of those decks you really want to see your names. You have to see names to be able to play. If they gave them one more really good name, that could be the difference. If it's another level 3 psychic, then and maybe it has a little more action with like E-Telly, then that almost makes like 6 new starters into your deck. That's obviously something that's interesting as well. It's a cool deck, and you know, Chuche Shen is definitely still a pretty powerful like baseline setup before you even talk about getting to like full-on end boards and stuff. I think this deck definitely could have some legs there. Now, you'd have to also talk about how many flex spots do you have after a new card like that, if it's a new 3 of, but I still think them having way more consistency would be like the biggest thing any virtual world player would be asking for. So it's cool. I'd like to see it. I think a lot of virtual world players would like to as well, and I think it could be the difference between them climbing back up into at least a nice, you know, flex roll, you know, a rogue roll that they, you know, definitely haven't been feeling like they could hold up over the last couple months or years. So, yeah, virtual world, number 2. Moving on, number 3. Magical Muskets. I love this deck. This deck has been passed by the wayside. It's just the truth. It hasn't been able to hold up. It has a lot of really powerful tools. Obviously, Max is one of the most insane cards ever. Maybe you could even argue Max is the best Link monster ever made. It's just in an archetype that doesn't have enough around it to make it good enough. But it's a very strong going second tool or in the grind kind of tool. I would love to see for Magical Musket specifically, maybe even just like an E-Telly type card. It could be a monster extender as well that's really good, and like it can extend itself without your normal summon to help play through that. That's a huge weakness in the deck, very normal summon reliant. It could be a card that could like summon itself and search you a Musket card, and like that's kind of cool. But more so, I think a bigger thing would be just like an E-Telly card, because it's another spell card that could activate in your Musket zones to get you searches, to get you summons off Starfire, right? Stuff like that. As well as pushing your engine, as well as covering up your weakness of being super normal summon reliant, and it kind of does a little bit of everything for you. Plus, if it's generic enough, this like spell in terms of like not need, if it's like really like an E-Telly, like Quick Launch, it doesn't have a huge restriction. It definitely opens up the deck to be combined with other strategies again, more flexibly, because that engine becomes a little bit easier to kind of like fit in with other stuff because of that extender. You don't have to just play like a ton of normal summons in your deck anymore, which would be really cool. So yeah, I think Muskets are actually closer than people realize. This deck 3-4 years ago was getting tops in like legit YCSs. It was a legit rogue deck for a while, and I think like one really good card could get it right back where it needs to be, at least in a rogue status. Number 2, ninjas. I made an entire video talking about one specific card I want to see for ninjas. They had to end up on here. It's also one of my favorite archetypes of all time. They're so cool. Ninjas have almost everything they need. They have so much. You've got your Hanzo, so you have your Stratos monster that's insane and potentially loopable. You have 2 new extra deck monsters that are easy to make and really worth it. And you could also throw Saizo in there. I know he doesn't come up as much right now, but if they got the right card, that would become even more common for that, which would be really, really cool as well. The one card I'd want to see is a monster extender that you know, says something to the effect of, if you have no monsters on field or only ninjas, you can summon this card to your field, or something like if you control all ninjas or face sound monsters or no monsters, whatever. It summons itself, but doesn't need anything on field potentially to do it. And then when it summons itself, even just summon a ninja token. Some people would argue Tour Guide, summon another ninja from deck, because obviously summoning like a Hanzo would be insane. Maybe they'd restrict it by saying like set a ninja from deck, so that way you could contact fuse with it, but you couldn't, you know, use its effects, so you couldn't just summon Hanzo and get another plus and just keep going like crazy. I would understand that. But yeah, literally just an extender that puts another ninja body on the field. It feels like the deck has a little bit of consistency issues in that hands you see Hanzo in feel really nice, and then every hand you don't see Hanzo in feels really just okay to bad. And so with Hanzo essentially only being a 4 of, with, you know, just Rhoda and Hanzo, and then if Prosperity doesn't find him, not great, this is another 3 of that helps you get that going. And depending on what, you know, type they make him, he could potentially be searchable as well with a certain Rhoda card as well. So that is definitely in the air as well. yeah, I just think the deck has kind of everything else. The deck can make plenty of interruptions. The deck grinds like crazy. The deck has tools going second, like the new Fusion that just banishes a card. Even Maizen plays into decks going second pretty well. And it's a really cool deck, and they have almost everything. But a little bit of consistency and a little bit of power playing through interruption is another reason why this card would be good as well. So that would be perfect. I think that would put them in such a good spot to be like an actual contending rogue deck, because right now the deck has a good matchup versus Cash, and everyone else, it has just like a fine matchup generally, but you're just outclassed in terms of how good your deck actually is. So this would be a huge piece to see for them. So I'd love to see that. All right, that's number 4, bringing us to number 5 in our last deck here. These were not in particular order. It's Weather Painters. I haven't talked about them in a long time, but this deck is one card away. The last year, they got the new Link 3. They got, the new Trap? No, the new Field Spell, sorry. And the new Field Spell. Those were the 2 new cards they got. Those cards were fine. I thought they were good cards for the deck overall. If you were going to tell me there's Weather Painter support, I wouldn't have super high faith that Konami would like make them bangers. I didn't think those cards were bangers, but I thought they were solid. And so I think the deck is in a really cool place where, because of the spell, the new Field Spell, the deck has these 2 and 3 card combos that are like actually really solid payoff. You get a good amount of value and some interruption as well in some of those setups that are really nice. But again, same thing as kind of Ogdoadic. What is our baseline play? This deck cannot set up interruption if you're not going full combo, at least via your engine. And so what I would want to see more than anything, give us an interruptive canvas. It doesn't have to be super powerful. It could be as strong as a Dryad. Target a card on the field, destroy it. Target only face-up card on the field. Target only monsters, whatever. You could restrict it in certain ways. It could even be as simple as an imperm. But because it's a canvas and it's face-up, it's live every turn. So it's every turn you can negate a monster. Or, negate a card, face-up card on the field, maybe be a little bit too strong, because this is a deck that could play stuff like Macrocosmoses and Skill Drains, and then you'd have a card that could technically like negate those types of cards, or negate like evenly matches and the stuff that would handle that. So I understand not doing it that way, but it could be as mediocre as an imperm. But because it's a canvas, it's every single turn, it's exactly what the deck needs. If you open Snow and no other engine cards, that means really not that much right now. You probably just get blown away by the deck going second against you. But if you give them just this canvas, now is that as a recurring interruption every single turn, and it allows you to buy yourself time to set up your whole Weather Painter board. And it doesn't have to be that strong. It just needs to be baseline, just a consistent, it's going to hinder my opponent somehow. The most important effect, I'm negating it. The most important like monster effect on field, I'm negating that. That's all you need. It doesn't have to be that good. It just needs to be that simple, and then the deck can consistently get to that as its baseline setup. It would be, what Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres is to Dragon Link. This canvas would be that for Weather Painters. Their baseline play. Oh, okay, I guess we're not going combo because we got a hand trapped, or I only opened exactly Snow and like nothing else really for my engine. Let's just get our interruption set up, and we're going to do this every turn. That's solid. It's so solid. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to throw at you here. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, all these decks I have like an affinity towards in one way or another. Particularly these top 3, and I do like Reptiles as well. Virtual World is more of like a one that I thought just made a lot of sense for this list, but it's a fun topic to talk about. I always love talking about what decks should get support and how they should be approached, all that stuff. Hopefully you guys like this video. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on this topic. What decks did you feel like got left off of this that easily could have been on it? Hopefully reveals get kicking really soon. I'm very excited to see what comes out here. We're also super close to Dune, and there's a lot of stuff I'm excited to build from Dune, so hopefully I'll get you some content on that stuff as soon as that drops in a couple weeks as well. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. I will see you in the next video. Peace.